Welcome to White Pill Radio, the roughly every other episode version of Theology on Air, which is an outgrowth of Theology by the Pint, which is an in-person gathering around craft beer where we talk about ethics and philosophy and theology and politics and all sorts of interesting things. To learn more, you should go to theologybythepint.org, theologybythepint.org, and you can learn about our current events and past events and our leadership team and how you can give so that you can support this thing that we do called Theology by the Pint and Theology on Air. But White Pill Radio in particular is post-apologetic, ultimately hopeful, applied theology that looks at the hottest of hot headlines, the news and current events from a Christian worldview. I like to say that this is blessed talk, but not happy talk, because we're not superficial and lame here, okay? We are trying to actually apply Christian theology to what's going on in the world. So I'm Evan McClanahan. I happen to be the pastor at First Lutheran Church, and so I'll help out with this episode. Glad to have you listening, and glad to have this panel with us. Some familiar faces, but let's go around and introduce ourselves.
I'm Ken, the accountant,
and anarchist.
And anarchist.
Yeah. I'm sorry, but the two together are funny. I'm Sarah Stone. I'm the executive director for Theology by the Pint.
Cody Pogue. I'm a community college professor here in the Houston area.
And so for all of those of you who say we're just a bunch of right-wing nut jobs who
have an echo chamber.
Cody's back. He was here once before. Now that he got the introductory nice stuff last time, we're gonna maybe ask a few more questions this go around.
I survived the first time.
Yeah,
Well,
you seem totally up for it.
This episode will come out shortly, so mark your calendars for October 15th because we're going to be talking about politics and who you should vote for. And Cody is going to be on our panel repping for team. Well, you know what? I won't tell you. See if you can figure it out by what he says today.
Don't vote. Don't vote.
Do not listen to Ken. Good grief. Okay.
All right. Well, if we didn't mention theologybythepint.org, or you tried to fast forward past that, gotcha. Okay, theologybythepint.org. Do go there and do help us out. By the way, we should say, like, if you give how much per month, then you get to come to our events for free, and you get some merch and stuff. I mean, there's some pretty good deals.
There's all kinds of deals.
Okay.
And so if you go to theologybythepint.org and the give page, there's like a list of all of the perks of different levels of giving. I will tell you, no one's actually taken us up on the highest level. So go and look and see what that is. It involves a meal, hanging out with leadership. It's pretty cool. But yes, if you give, I think it's $50 or more a month, then you come to our events for free. And at our upcoming events, we're going to have a make your own t-shirt station or like tank or tote bag, and you get to put whatever design you want on there. It's going to be really cool.
Tank? Like
a Razorback. You guys can't get that. That's just for the women or people that have XX.
Oh, no, I was hoping for like a weapon of war, but okay. You're talking about shirts. Okay, whatever.
I'm just imagining a tank going
Lockheed
through
Martin
Houston.
just hands them out these days like candy.
Gosh.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, one of the, because we do this every other week, we can't always be like right on top of some of the stories. So forgive us if by now the men, whoever has won the gold medal in women's boxing, but it was quite a big story in the Olympics that two XY chromosomed people, which normally means you are a male, are fighting in the female division. And anyway, so there's obviously great, how did the British say it?
Controversy.
Thank you.
Yes.
So Ken said, well, it's actually complicated and we need to be giving it a second thought. It's not a trans issue per se. So Ken's going to give us the break it down for us. And
what's crazy is this article from August 1st is like severely out of date now.
Isn't that funny?
It's crazy because since August 1st, there's been 2 announcements from the IBA, which is the International Boxing Association. This article has the original statement, which said that the boxers in question have XY chromosomes, right? Because they were excluded based on tests that showed they had XY chromosomes. At least we initially thought that from, what was his name? His name was Umar Kremlev, the head of the International Boxing Association.
He's Russian.
Oh, and IBA has separated from the International Olympic Committee.
They don't get along.
Yeah, in 2016 over scandals about corruption and mishandling of funds and maybe a little bit of doping allegations, but we don't know. But then in 2023, they completely cut ties and they completely reject their legitimacy. The IOC rejects the legitimacy of the IBA. So it's crazy that after Umar Kremlev of the IBA made the announcement that they had, and this article doesn't even say that they had testosterone levels that indicated XY chromosomes. So not even a statement about a karyotype test. The IBA came out later and said, wait, hold on, we didn't even do testosterone testing. They were eliminated, they were disqualified based on tests that have not been, opened up and revealed to the public. We don't know about the blood test in question, whether we don't know about the nature of the tests, and we don't know about the outcome of the test. We just know that these people were disqualified.
Well, and that they accepted their disqualification in that they didn't appeal.
One of them
or
did
continue,
appeal and then withdrew
dropped
their
it.
appeal.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that sort of seems like they're saying, yeah, you got me, kind of. No?
Well, XY and XX, that's a pretty easy test, right?
What do you mean easy test for what?
Well, I mean, it's easy
To
to
perform.
determine that, right?
Yeah, but are you going to test every single boxer in the
No,
international
only the
boxing
manly
association?
looking ones.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask, and it may seem
I'm being a little sarcastic.
It may seem a little mean, but I did pull up a bunch of pictures of other boxers for the we can always tell crowd, because it's not that easy. And for some of you that have like an aunt or a cousin or a friend that
Has a few too many chin hairs. Yeah.
I mean, it can be really, really insulting. Speaking as a man, like Sarah, you're lucky to have like feminine facial features,
Oh
but
my gosh,
like,
thank you, Kat.
imagine if you didn't. Like, that would be really, really hard to go through life as.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the science behind this, is really, really, really the complicated question around what is a woman, because that is a really easy question to answer until you bring up these edge cases and you ask, is this a woman? So to really, really give a
This
brief...
is what we used to call hermaphrodites, but we don't say that anymore, right?
No. A hermaphrodite doesn't actually exist in, apes, right? And I don't even think it exists in mammals at all.
It's like fish creatures and
A
stuff.
hermaphrodite is
okay.
like a clown, exactly, like
Or
a clownfish
worms.
who can switch between male and female.
Or they can fertilize themselves.
And fertilize, exactly.
If only it was so easy.
Right. So the only reason this matters is because like humans, like every other species of ape, have extreme sexual dimorphism, which means there's a difference in the sizes and shapes of the males and females.
It's what we used to call intersex. We don't call it that anymore.
Okay.
We still can.
In all of the stuff I've been listening to, they were calling it DSD.
DSD, yeah.
Sure.
That's the one I've heard. Okay.
But either way.
And the problem is, like, it really goes to, like, the fetus conversation. In utero, around up until about 7-9 weeks, all fetuses kind of are building with the same genetic engine that creates females until the Y chromosome gets activated, right? Then what? Okay,
So you're saying I used to be a girl.
cover your ears, children, because this is going to get a little graphic. The area where like the vulva and the urethra are, right? When the Y chromosome gets activated in a typical male, right, that elongates and becomes what will eventually become the penis. The gonads drop into what are, protolabia and develops testicles. However, if that Y chromosome is not activated, they migrate northward. The gonads grow internally
Ovaries.
and become ovaries. A uterus develops.
They should be paying us for this. This is a science lesson.
The engine
Is there gonna
that
be a
builds
quiz?
humans is designed to build females unless it sees this Y chromosome. But what happens if there is a Y chromosome, but it's broken?
Yeah.
Those gonads go where the ovaries are supposed to be. A uterus even develops. The labia and vulva stay kind of where they are, but like this person may not even know that they have XY chromosomes until like they miss their first period.
Right.
And if they're in a country like Algeria with a very, very strict...
And boxing or gymnastics or anything that would maybe even keep you from having a period.
Sure, yeah, under intense physical stress, like you may skip a couple periods if you're a female.
Yeah.
And if you have like
Years,
XY chromosomes. And yeah, it's really, really complicated because...
So you're saying these are edge cases, but these could be legitimately female.
Well, so I'm asking because I'm not an Olympian, right? I'm not even into the Olympics. I don't really watch the Olympics all that much, so I don't really care about this. We probably should do karyotype testing for certain events like boxing.
I think we should do it for all
This
events.
happened.
There's a
by
lot of Olympians.
Well,
There
not
is a-
things like pool, billiards, but something where there's a physical connection.
But men's and women's pool is separated.
But
as
for
well.
the
I
church...
know it's separated, but what I'm saying is an increase of testosterone isn't going to give them the same advantage that punching someone will.
But for the culture wars and the church and state like people, this does raise some serious questions, right? Like for the pastors, if somebody was raised in like a rural Pentecostal area where there's no sex ed. And they think they're a female until they move to the big city, come to your church, and do this newfangled 23andMe, and they find out that they're part Czech. They have some German in their blood, but they also find out, holy crap, I have XY chromosomes, right? Like, but they present, and they've always assumed they were female. Do you marry them to a male or a woman, and for the state people who reject the Obergefell decision, who are you going to force this person to get married to, right?
Yeah.
What is a woman is an easy question, but is this person a woman is really, really difficult, because you're either going to force a same-sex marriage based on phenotype, or you're going to force a same-sex marriage based on genotype.
But can I throw something in the mix?
Sure.
Because I think the way you're saying it, I mean, this pulls at my heartstrings either way. But you talked about everything that happens in the womb, but there's sort of a second dose of the testosterone process in puberty. And so these people that you're describing, especially the one that Imani has, the GALMNOP, whatever it's called, would have given a huge testosterone boost in puberty, such that he, she, whatever, has extra strength, has
much bigger than a typical XX woman, but much significantly less than an XY male.
Okay.
And there's probably not an Olympic category that somebody with the middle level of testosterone should be able to compete at, because they will not be able to compete in the male open division. She even got wrecked in 2020 by like an Irish boxer, right? She won't be able to compete at the male levels because her testosterone is way too low.
Interesting.
Right? It's significantly lower.
Golly.
It really breaks my heart how mean the public Christians have been. Public conservatives, I mean, it's a day ending in Y. They're always mean, right? They did this to Serena Williams back in 2016. But like public Christians on Twitter, X, Twix, whatever, like it's been heartbreaking to see some of the like really, really mean-spirited memes coming from what should be our people.
Well,
Rant over.
I think part of that. No, I think part of that.
I appreciate that rant.
Yeah, but I think it comes on the heels of men clearly being men, no genetic abnormality at all, winning first and second prize in a bicycling competition.
Or J.K. Rowling.
The Will Thomas thing, or what have you. I mean, hulking men with no abnormality at all, pretending to be women, and and displacing women from their opportunity to compete fairly in sport. So I think it just comes on the heels of that, and so people link them. They're not the same. I agree, they're not the same.
J.K. Rowling had to do a huge walk back after saying like this is a man punching a woman, and then because she has her whole history in like domestic violence shelters, and then she like had to do a huge walk back because she's like, I don't submit
on the walk back.
Right.
I mean, I just watched a British biologist today talking about.
But the problem is everyone's assuming they're XY, and we still don't even know that.
Yeah, so I don't know science, so I'm like just dumb on all this stuff. But I'm the philosophy guy. So I honestly think part of this situation is we have two political parties, right? And both political parties kind of fall apart on this issue because I think the guiding principle on both political parties for Republicans, I think the guiding principle is fairness. Everything should be fair. You should get exactly what you deserve in life. You shouldn't get more than you deserve. You shouldn't get less. And I think that goes to most issues, whether it's economic, social. On the liberal side, it's about we want to stop suffering. We want to stop pain, right? And on this issue for liberals, we struggle, right? Because we don't want to see this trans person be hurt when it's a trans person, right? They already get bullied in life. We don't want the government or the sports authority to bully them as well. But at the same time, let's say that you've got someone from a poor family who needs a scholarship to go to college. They might not get it because now you have this person who's born with more strength fighting against them or whatever sport it might be. And so we actually divide on that. I know that one group is louder than the other, but liberals struggle on this issue. For conservatives, I think it's their struggle here because on one hand, you want to say that it's, external anatomy, but on the other hand, there's this idea of fairness. Everybody should get what they deserve. And what if this person, let's say they're born female anatomy, all that sort of thing, but they do have higher testosterone levels. Is that fair?
That sometimes occurs in XX women too, where they have just more testosterone.
So I think what we're seeing is a struggle of, are we going to go with our traditional understanding that a woman has this
External,
anatomy,
yeah.
or are we going to say, no, let's go with fairness, that it's about how much testosterone you have? And I think that's the battle that's
Well, you
taking
gave
place.
two options. There's a third option, which is going with the chromosomal testing.
There's probably not really a place for these people to compete because we really have two divisions. We have a women's division and an open division.
Yeah. Well, yeah, competing in sport is not like some human right.
Yeah.
So,
true.
to me, if there is a question, sorry, you don't get to participate. That's what I would say. Because it does seem, there are definitely nations that are not above finding every advantage to get their country a medal. Because for a lot of nations, they have one shot at this. In our childhood, it was the Soviets, doping up the East German women who were like, full of steroids. And of course, we laughed at their hairy armpits, when we were kids. But anyway, so that was, it's what Rocky IV is all about. It's steroids versus training in the wilderness. Everybody knows this, the truth that if you train in the wilderness, you win. Anyway, so this is, to me though, it's like, so nations will cheat. Athletes will cheat. And to me, it's a form of cheating. If you have puberty because it's not just your gonads. Okay. We're talking about denser, more muscle mass
Than a female.
bigger. Yes.
Less than a male. And
Okay.
that's the problem.
So, but still, it's not an even playing field.
It's not.
But-
more muscle mass, denser bones, longer bones, more leverage.
Longer arms.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, I can
that's what I'm
punch you
saying.
and you can't punch
Yes.
me.
Yeah. Bigger reach.
But do we start looking at other things, like if somebody's taller or somebody's shorter?
That's the
Those
question.
things matter too.
That's
If
what I said
somebody
about
weighs
it.
They do
more,
that.
weighs
They
less.
do that. You have welterweights and
I was gonna say.
welterweights and
Welter, yeah.
lightweights and heavyweights. So that happens within genders for obvious reasons.
So in
So-
basketball, if somebody's 8 foot tall, do we disqualify them? They have an unfair advantage.
So the problem is we have an open division and a women's division. Women could compete in football or like any of the male dominated sports. They can probably even do the MLB if they wanted to, right? They just are not competitive
can't.
there. Right. They can't exactly.
Yes.
But it's an open division. And then we have women's division where we have to put boxes around just how much testosterone you can have. You can have like he mentioned the doping, a lot of the doping that the Soviets did was testosterone.
Yeah.
Exogenous, not endogenous.
Yeah.
Okay, so the lady that I listened to today said
Yeah.
and she's a biologist in Great Britain, and I couldn't even figure out her political party by listening to her, but she said, if you have XX chromosomes, even if you have a high, there's a range of testosterone within both, right?
Yes.
But the highest range of testosterone in an XX chromosomal person isn't anywhere close to the low testosterone range of an XY chromosome. And so her point was, test everybody. And if you find I think what Evan said is sadly true. If you find somebody that's in this kind of intersex DSD situation, it may disqualify them for fairness sake. And also for the sake of whoever they're smacking, right? Like when you talk about suffering and wanting to be
how about
kind,
how
what
about
about
the
the
victim?
recipient of the
Right.
punch? But in my mind, that solves it. Like if you look at XY and XX, and that's how you delineate the camps for sport.
I
where's the
do
problem?
think that's we do have this this like victim matrix, right? We've talked about this before, where if you're black, if you're dark black, or if you're light black, or if you're a woman, or if you're neurodivergent, or if you're homeless, or if you're a drug addict, and many other factors besides, those are all a matrix. And the more of those things you have, the higher you are on the victim matrix. That's leftism. That's modern leftism today.
I think we'd have the
But
same
I would
argument
say
if they were from
Christians-
Denmark. Right?
I would say Christians do the same thing. Like,
Yeah.
recently we had a different conflict where there was some kind of, it was the Feast of Dionysius or something.
right,
and,
right, yeah.
With the
right.
K-Smurf.
And a lot of Christians
Are you
just
talking
saw
about the opening?
The-
an
ceremony?
opening
yeah,
statement.
yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of Christians just saw people sitting on the same side of the table and they were like, they're persecuting us as Christians. And,
That was definitely a Last Supper reference, but
Even the actors
Well,
thought it was the Last Supper.
Afterwards, they did
I
come
don't
out and
know.
say
Yeah.
it was.
okay, but my point though was that we end up we have a victim matrix over here for all these people, but the person getting beat in the street, okay, is trash. They're treated often like trash. that maybe gets into other storylines. But to me, I mean, for example, in San Francisco, they will build, this apartment complex to put homeless people in. It's $600,000 per apartment. Meanwhile, the person who has paid through a bank loan and through their own efforts for a $1.5 million home, they don't want to go out at night because it's unsafe, or they have to walk their children around feces on the sidewalk. I mean, they are the victim. Right. They are the person following the rules, paying the taxes, and doing the right thing. And therefore, like in this boxing situation, the person getting bashed in the head is the victim, not the person who is enjoying the good life with a physical advantage and going in and knocking people around. So
they could both be victims.
Yeah.
One of the
Or it's just a bad. Here's my real take: is that women shouldn't be boxing.
I was going to say,
actually
you
don't hate that.
you mentioned that you don't like women boxing, which is
Pugilist activities. I mean,
Boxing is gross anyway, so.
Well, I mean, I said this years ago. I remember when Ronda Rousey in the UFC was
Ronda Rousey and Chris Cyborg were like, that was my era of the UFC with like Forrest Griffin and Anderson Silva.
Yeah.
Oh, I loved it. And I agreed with you at first. When the undercard was two women boxing and grappling and like smacking each other in the face with like their shins, seeing a woman with like a puffy eye really made me uncomfortable.
Well, I mean,
until I learned that it was like, high stakes chess. It's chess with your body. And you start to learn about like side control
with your body.
I know.
And so then there's a state. Then I'm gonna say there are things that women ought to be doing with their bodies and not.
I agree. Actually,
I mean that's actually like what civilization is, where women don't participate in things like that. But now I remember in college I took a whole class on like Jack London, and Jack London was a very, very fascinating guy, and he happened to marry this really beautiful, intelligent woman who was like the first woman in like California to ride, not side saddle or whatever, she straddled her horse. I don't know. That sounds terrible, but
that harlot.
So, it's like, I understand that there are always going to be like conflicts in society about like what women should do with their bodies. I got it, because it could be provocative, it could be inappropriate or whatever. But to me, like women should not have to be fighting. Like I can.
This is why I don't think they should be conscripted. If there's, I realize
for sure.
I don't think anyone should be conscripted.
Well, that's fair. That's fair.
But even if they want to, you would say they still should.
Yeah. So you said have to fight.
Right.
No.
I
I would say that my ideal would be that we would culturally it would be repugnant to us that women would be fighting
That's
one another.
That's very aspirational.
Yeah. No, I mean I understand that we're long past that, but I mean it used to be that women mud wrestling was like a it was like a sideshow. It was like a sideshow.
Escalated quickly.
well, no, I mean, but there's anyway. It's the fact that it shouldn't be going on is what makes it exciting for people to watch.
Yes.
And I think there is a certain. I'll say this: I think there is a certain gratification among sick men in watching women hurt each other. I think that there is. I think certain men get gratification in hurting women, and they can get away with it now. Because I think that now this does tie back to the trans issue. I think a lot of what trans, at least among men, is basically men getting off on wearing women's clothing. It's what's the word for that?
Autogynephilia.
Yeah. So I think that's real.
Hey guys, Sarah Stone here. Sorry to interrupt what I'm sure is a riveting podcast episode, but Theology by the Pint needs your help to continue providing these podcasts, offering our in-person events, and growing so we can bring thoughtful conversation and the hope of the gospel to a world that's increasingly walking away from church and from faith. Now that we're a 501c3 nonprofit, all donations are tax deductible, so we've crunched the numbers, and if each listener of this episode gave just $1 for each episode you listen to, we'd put a huge dent in our annual budget. So consider giving today. Go to theologybythePint.org/give and click the link to donate. Thanks so much. And now back to our show.
What's that?
Woman face,
Woman
like
face,
black
yeah.
face, but
it's how it's what excites them, so I think it's all of this doesn't protect women. I think chromosomes matter, and I would just say I'm sorry you don't have a right to compete.
Again, I don't really care about the Olympics, but what do you do when this person in your church comes up and they want to marry either like someone that matches their phenotype, or they want to marry someone that matches their genotype? What do you do?
Really dicey. I am curious.
What?
You're the pastor.
Put you on the spot here.
It's either same-sex genotype or same-sex phenotype.
Well, I think that
not always. Sometimes they can do surgeries to help them match. I mean, a lot of what we now call intersex.
Swyer syndrome, I've only ever read the term. They can give birth. The uterus, even though the testes that have migrated upwards, the gonads like kind of just become inactive, they don't produce eggs. But you can do in vitro fertilization.
That's a whole other issue.
And their wombs, their uterus is functional. They can give birth.
Yeah. I mean,
And she's the lady today said in the other way that people with what this boxer has can sometimes father children.
Sometimes too, if the testes are not inactive. But
okay, but no one is 50-50. No one is like half woman, half man.
Right.
You're more one than the other. So that would be my answer.
Huh.
well, it's just a matter of how broken the Y chromosome is.
Yeah.
So taking it a different direction, and I don't know where I stand on some of these things, so I'm just talking about ideas. But, I think there's so many Christian theologies, but many Christians would make the argument that the body is simply the temporary home for the soul. Right. Mm-hmm. That in the beginning, God created man and woman out of clay, our bodies, but then he breathed the soul into our bodies, which was created in the image of God. So our bodies, yes, do have a sex, male or female, for purposes of recreation. Does our soul actually have
Jesus said in the
gender?
resurrection, they're neither married nor given to marriage, but they will be like the angels in heaven. Right. I mean, like,
so are we making too big of a deal out of this? Because am I, my soul, I think that's me. Am I really male? Or do I just
That's a
not
really good
exist?
question.
It is, but I've thought about this
know.
before, and I think I would say a resolute yes.
Yeah.
I think your soul is what we call gendered,
Yeah.
and that's a new term.
Yeah,
Because
we
I
are
think,
neither married nor given in marriage, but we're still male or female.
Galatians
heaven
says
we
in
will be-
Christ there is no male or female, right?
But
that means about salvation. There's not
right,
a preference,
right.
right?
it says there's no Jew or Greek, but there's still
right.
Jews or Greeks. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
idea of souls being gendered is fascinating, and the
That's-
thing is,
yeah.
our bodies are. They may just be a sort of temple housing spot, but they also do endure with us into eternity. We have
Right.
a glorified body.
Right.
We'll have bodies in the new new
Right.
earth.
So what you said it like the body's like a temporary holding thing for this. So I would disagree. I think we are a body and a soul. So
Yeah.
this gets back to
Whoa. We're a body in a soul or a soul in a
And-
body?
Soul in a body.
what difference does it make?
Oh, no, I'm
Transitive
asking you.
property.
Hylomorphism.
Wait, no,
Yeah.
human beings are bodies and souls.
He said,
And, I heard
That's
you
what I
say
was trying to say.
in.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
yeah.
Sorry.
I was like, a body in a soul. Wow, that's wild.
Sorry. Body, human beings
And
are
a
bodies
soul.
and souls.
Gotcha.
Our
Wrapped
bodies
in
are
an
not.
enigma.
Our bodies are not incidental. Now, I agree that does present the problem of upon our death, and we're separated from our body, and so therefore, how do we exist? That's how soul sleep comes as some kind of answer to that. I don't really think it matters.
No,
that
that's
much.
what I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that we can exist without a body, but it's not the fullness of it's not the best way that we will. And actually the best way we'll exist is with a glorified body that's not corrupted by sin.
Praise Jesus. I cannot wait.
Yeah.
But the white pill on this, I think, would be something like what you were saying, that Christians have to show compassion in this scenario. And
Christians have been so mean.
they haven't been
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, and I think there's this desire to immediately say something before facts really come
Yeah.
out. And if we're going to say that Jesus is the truth and that we want people to trust us with our message, I think we have a duty to make sure we get other things right. Because if we're wrong about all these other things, and then
Why
we
would
tell
they trust
somebody
us about- yeah.
exactly,
The lack of curiosity is just astounding.
yeah.
Well, I would say too, though, whether women should box or not, I would say that women should not participate in these events. Going back to the trans issue, if you don't think it's fair that a man is, I think Riley Gaines has now come to this conclusion, even though she raced against Will Thomas, also known as Leah Thomas.
Yeah.
I dead name, I don't care. So
Just for people listening to know who you're
yes,
talking about.
yes, the 6'4" hulking man who won the national championship. So anyway, I think that there does need to be a concerted effort. And I said this a while back. It seems like everyone's saying it, so they're obviously following my lead.
That's probably it.
It's the only conclusion, though. It's basically civil disobedience at this point. The government, some of these athletic organizations are coming around. Like the swimming one didn't allow William Thomas to swim in the Olympics. And there are various other athletic organizations that are prohibiting it. But the best way to stop it is for the athletes themselves to stop participating and giving them credence.
Well, or for, like I said,
There will be sacrifice.
The IOC is in this weird like limbo where they cut ties with like their previous doping agency, right?
Yeah.
The IBA, the International Boxing Agency, was the one testing for doping, and now they're in this weird limbo where they don't even recognize
Okay,
them.
the IOC is probably the most corrupt organization
Probably.
on Earth.
Have you seen Icarus?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
it's a good documentary.
Yeah, that's on Netflix. It's about doping and bicycling. Everyone should watch that. Yeah.
So if we're not going based on external anatomy, if we're going based on testosterone levels or something, would it make sense to have more than two like
There's not
categories?
enough people in the
Well,
middle.
there already are more than two categories. Even within, when you have boxers, they have like heavyweight, lightweight, featherweight, right?
Right.
Yeah. I just saw the BAFTA. What is BAFTA? It's like is it Golden Globes or something. I think it's like some award thing. Anyway,
Sure.
you know how they have actor and actress? They have two categories.
Yes.
They're forcing people to choose. So, so non-binary actors or actresses are having to say, which one are you? You know, we don't care if you think that you're one and you're the other. We don't care about that. There's no judgment, but we're not creating a third category for non-binary actors.
Yeah.
So I think that is kind of funny.
It is kind of funny.
Yeah. Okay. There was a couple of articles that I put together. I wrote about it on our church blog. It's my newsletter, felc.wordpress.com. I don't pay for WordPress, so I have to put the word WordPress in the URL. But the article I wrote is "Be angry but do not sin," which comes from Ephesians 4:26, where Paul literally tells us to be angry. So I'm totally justified.
Okay.
So lay off. All right.
That's a certain kind of hermeneutic.
Anyway, but the point, my basic point is that there are things to be angry about. That Christians probably ought to be angry, and that we sometimes interpret Paul's or Jesus' ethic as basically being compliant, as being almost like a nice doormat zombie that doesn't have feelings about things. But there are really some terrible things that go on, and so I'm contrasting a couple of stories that have come up in the news recently. One is a poor 18-year-old girl that makes $500 a month working in a taco truck here in Houston, who had a baby, delivered it either outside or inside the food truck a few weeks back, put the baby in a dumpster because she was afraid her boyfriend would leave her. The baby cried. People heard it. Police saved the baby. She's now being held on $200,000 bond. Of course, has no money, has no connections, has nothing. And so she faces probably many years of hard prison time for abandoning her baby. Of course, thank God the baby lived, because in most cases they don't, and they're found in dumpsters later. But I contrast that with another story that came out, which was Doug Emhoff, who happens to be married to the Democratic, I guess presumptive, but nominee, Kamala Harris, who, there was a story as they're digging out dirt on as what happens, that he had an affair, previous marriage, not with Kamala, but previous marriage with the nanny, who was a teacher at their school, their children's school, and so forth. She got pregnant, and we're not sure if she had an abortion or not. The baby either could have been born, she could have given it up to adoption, but that child does not seem to be around. It would be a 14-year-old child now. There was a source that said she had an abortion, but it's not clear. But regardless, he proudly defends the rights of women to get abortions. Obviously, I would argue Kamala Harris, tying into another story. She was around on the front end of the guy that went into the various Planned Parenthoods and other clinics where they were selling body parts, and he taped them undercover. And we might come back to that because there was another YouTube video that actually just dropped yesterday about Gulf Coast Planned Parenthood, which is like a quarter mile from my house, I'm sad to say. But anyway, Kamala Harris, basically prosecuted or people after her prosecuted him for recording it, not the people actually selling body parts. So that's who Kamala Harris is. She seems to be pro-abortion. It's the only plank that I can see that she's made in terms of policy. And so, but my point is, both of their children, if Doug Emhoff's nanny, who he was having an affair with, got pregnant and he encouraged or whatever, she had an abortion. Either way, he abandoned the child or he had the child killed, I would say. Either way, these two children ended up in the same place, which is a dumpster, okay? Because that's what happens to aborted babies. They end up in dumpsters. And so my point is, why is he celebrated? I mean, he's the first gentleman. He's, he could be the first gentleman, or he's the first vice gentleman, or whatever his title is now. Basically it makes news for a day, then it's forgotten. We're all going to just forget that he's just this swell guy who, loves people, and he's for women's rights. But he did the same thing that this 18-year-old Honduran, or actually I don't know that she's Honduran, but she is an illegal immigrant. And she has no recourse, no resources. She was afraid she would lose connection to the one person that she has in this world, which is her boyfriend.
Which I'm sure is security. It's
Yes.
not just
Yeah. And so why is one of these okay and one of these why does one of these turn our stomach but the other one we look the other way on? Is it because one is done in a sterile, clean environment and one is done and to me it's a total hypocrisy, it's a total double standard, and I'm kind of sick of it. It's repulsive and disgusting, and to me this is where we end up. And I guess if I had to summarize it, I'd put it this way. The left needs to be, if you're going to champion abortion, and I'll say Donald Trump too, because he now champions 15-week abortions and mifepristone or whatever that abortion-causing drug. So if we're going to champion abortion, we need to be raising her bail money. We need to be getting her out of jail. We need to be getting her, the best lawyers we can to defend her right to put her baby in a dumpster, because apparently there's nothing wrong with that. Tell
and
me
she
I'm wrong.
probably didn't even get an abortion in part because she didn't have the money for it.
Yeah.
Right? Because she could have done this, quote, legally.
Or maybe it was a preemie, and I've heard of stories where people didn't know they were pregnant even 7-8 months in. That seems impossible to believe, but
No, I think it does happen.
yeah. So I don't know. Tell me if I'm wrong.
You're the only Harris supporter here. So
Oh man, so
We're all
there's so
turning.
many things I've got with this.
Yeah.
First of all, so many things about this girl's case, turn my stomach. Like, I think some help should have been given along the way. My personal view on immigration, I think we do need to do what we can to secure the border. But people who have been here for a little while,
And she was here about a year and a half.
yeah, I don't know exactly how long, but I think people should be able to come to seek help once they're here, and we didn't have that, and that's why you end up in these situations. I think we need some kind of safety net for people who are here. On the abortion issue, I look at it a little bit differently for a couple reasons, but part of it is I still end up at the same conclusion as most Democrats, but I'm not a supporter of abortion, but I guess I want to make it safe, rare, and legal.
Yeah.
I think we can fight it on the demand side rather than the supply side, right? Because if you leave a situation where people want it and need it,
No.
where people want it and need it but can't access it, I think you're just going to push it underground. I'd make the same argument with many drugs, right? You just push it underground if you make it illegal, but you don't have any kind of help for people getting it. So, let's make it to where we have safety net programs for women who do get pregnant, who don't have money. Let's have access to contraception across the board. Let's have better sexual education, that sort of thing. And let's try to fight abortion on that side. I got one more point, but you can go if you want.
I was going to say, I think it's significantly different than drugs or like the border, but make her the point.
Oh, I mean, in the other one, like, I don't want to, just stick with the point of viability, but on my side, what I'm really concerned with is how do we decrease suffering? I would make the argument, and y'all may agree, I got a pastor, so you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think the Bible really clearly says that we need to go against abortion. There's that one verse that says, before you were formed in your mother's womb, I knew you, but that could have easily said, before I created the heavens and the earth, I knew you. That's talking about God's foreknowledge and that you matter. It's not saying that you are a person in the womb. So certainly 5 seconds after conception, it's not a baby in the same way that a baby was just born. So the question becomes, at what point does it become what we would call a baby? Is it 10 weeks? Is it 20 weeks? Is it 30 weeks? Maybe we should decide that it's 15 weeks or so. It's certainly a life. I would say that it's a life. But what point does it become, I would say a life instantly, because it's got cells that are alive. But at what point...
plants are alive.
And chromosomes.
Right. But at what point chromosomes? But at what point, and I'm not the science guy, but at what point does it become, somebody who can think and feel pain and suffer and that sort of thing? And that's where I'm going to put the line more, because I think it certainly is different if the fetus can't feel pain, can't suffer, doesn't know what's going on, than a baby.
I think we'd all agree there's a difference.
Yeah, I made this point earlier,
Well,
which
but
is
the
not
article
the same
says
point.
it's the same thing. So
I made a point earlier about you don't mourn a 7 or 9 week miscarriage the way that you mourn a 7 or 9 month miscarriage, right? There is going to be a degree of
Yeah, because the family has spent time. They built out the nursery, and they've been been talking about names, and they've been thinking about the future, and they contacted the Little League, and there's a especially with a woman, I would think the intense bonding and the release of hormones to prepare and all of that. But are we talking about ontologically the nature of a thing? Are we talking
which
about
is where I was going to go next?
Yeah. Or are we talking about, how we feel about a thing? Because I can understand having a visceral reaction to something that can't feel pain or something versus, but I'm yes, ontologically they are the same thing. I mean, I would put this right to the heart of the gospel, because what is the gospel? The gospel is that God became human flesh. Well, when did he do that? Well, when the angel Gabriel came to Mary and said, "Blessed is the fruit of thy womb."
Yeah.
And I mean, at that point, that was conception. It wasn't like, tell you what, Mary, in 10 weeks, then you'll have a real human life, because then he can move around, whatever. Then he'll have a heartbeat. And this is why I don't like heartbeat bills. I don't like 12-week bills. I don't like mephistoprone. I don't like 15. I don't like 20 weeks. All those are compromises because we never talk about the thing itself. The thing itself is, and my point is, if we are going to have this culture where we get to debate about what human life is, we the living, right? We who have been loved and cared for by our parents, we're going to have this debate now after the fact about what human life is. My question is, what did let's just say she's from Honduras. I don't know where she's from. Right. What did she do wrong? What did the Honduran girl do wrong? Tell me what she did wrong.
Why is she in jail? What was her moral
if she got help doing that from a doctor in California,
that Governor Ralph Northam hasn't done,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, in Texas, it's illegal.
Yeah.
But however, in Texas,
you saw the Planned Parenthood video.
Yeah. Well, let me come back to that.
Yeah.
In Texas, technically we have a trigger law after Dobbs that says no abortions, and so the Planned Parenthood in my neighborhood doesn't do abortions anymore, and hasn't since 2022. Praise God. The Houston Women's Clinic down the street doesn't do abortions anymore. Praise God. But a woman can legally get the mephistoprone up to 12 weeks, take her own drugs, create her own abortion at home in the privacy of her home, and face no repercussions, because the pro-life community only sees women in this circumstance as always victims. That's part of the victim matrix. Pregnant woman, victim, even if she wants to kill her own child. So you get into all these ethical dilemmas of, well, if you pay a hitman to do it, and if Scott Peterson does it with Lacey Peterson, these are all double standards that don't work. Anyway.
So let's say that at the end of life, you've got someone who they've basically lost all ability to function, and they're being kept alive by machines. And this has been going on, and the doctors are like, it's been several weeks, however long it's been. Mm-hmm. There's no hope. We recommend you turn the machine off. Would it be murder to turn the machine off? Because
I don't know. Okay. Each case is different. Okay, so there is no absolute answer to those cases. That is done in consultation with family and religious leaders and things like that. But what I would say is, it depends on how you define death. Like I would probably say brain death with no
that's what I was going to get at. Yes. Is the point you're making is brain death, right? And so you would draw a line in utero, probably around brain activity rather than like heartbeat or anything.
Which doesn't brain activity start before most women know they're pregnant?
Well, yeah, that's the problem. Neurons firing.
I don't think it's a problem.
No. For the pro-choice side of things, is that neurons start firing around 6 to 8 weeks.
But if you do it on this state, you don't get to, it's like, you drive from, Houston to Dallas, but, you have to go through, Murfreesboro first. Is that where's the Buc-ee's? Anyway,
Madisonville.
Madisonville, thank you. You don't just say, well, I go from Houston to Dallas. You get there. And so it's like, you can't ignore the phases. And so to arbitrarily say, well, neurons or heartbeats or whatever, it's like, no, that's a compromise, because you can't get there without the other. We need to talk about the nature of the thing. And again, if you look at the incarnation, what we are saying is that God became human flesh when the angel Gabriel came to Mary. We don't put an arbitrary number on that, because he shared all of our life and all of our stresses and all of our nature.
I disagree with both of you on like the go to the Bible thing. Like some of my like bros when I was in the pro-life community like 10 years ago at like Texas A&M, that was like how I became so obsessed with like fetal development facts, which goes back to the trans thing. Yeah. Some of the best people there were the secular pro-lifers, right? The people that it's purely biology. It has nothing to do with the Bible. I vibe with those people so much. I respect biblical arguments on both sides, but like to me, like throw the Bible out when I'm making like this conversation happen, because I really just want to argue, what is this?
Right.
If it's a human being person, then we can't kill it.
But,
If it's
but
not,
what is a person, I think would be the question.
That's the question.
You
Not
should
what
go
is a
back
human
and
being.
listen to the event we did where we asked just that question.
yes,
Right.
yes.
When did we ask that? What was that?
What is a person? That's when we talked about the soul and stuff.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And
Soul
this
man.
is where I would go back to, you mentioned the psalm about he knew you before, and I agree with you that could be just this idea that he knew
Sure.
all,
Right.
except that, isn't that the same chapter where he talks about being knitted together in our mother's womb?
Yeah.
Does sound like womb talk. I mean, it has the word right in it.
Let's talk about ensoulment, though, and twinning, right? One of the craziest things is the difference between identical and fraternal twins, right? Where you get the sperm and the egg, right?
Yeah.
Where with fraternal twins, you could have like an X sperm and a Y sperm go into two different eggs. But where identical twins happen isn't until weeks after the zygote becomes an embryo and then splits into two things. So if you give mifepristone, at week 5, are you killing one soul? And at week 7, you're killing 2? It's a really interesting, really complicated question.
How about
Biology's weird.
No steroid or whatever it is. No Prestone. And then you don't have that issue,
You don't have that issue, right? But the question of ensoulment
Yeah.
is still on the table.
Yeah. So with the person argument, I would say that a human life and a person are different things, right? Because if an alien walked in and started talking to us, that's not a human being, but that is a person because they're conversing with us. But that person that's at the end of their life who is brain dead, I would say that's no longer a person. That's still
Yeah.
alive.
It's a human, but it's not a person.
And so it's okay to turn the machine off because it's lost personhood.
Yeah.
And so the fetus at some point before, early on, it's still alive, I would say.
Sure.
But it's not a person yet. So I think that's the question is when does it become a person?
But the harder one, though, would be something like someone who's in a vegetative state who's not brain dead.
Right.
Okay. And I would say in that case, you do use life-saving measures or what have you because, And sometimes those are ethical dilemmas. I mean, there are ethical dilemmas where there's not really one right answer. I would say that if we started going into the euthanasia or assisted suicide direction, I think we only need to look to Canada, where like if you're depressed, they'll be like, time for you to die. Like maybe it's better, like just help us kill you. But in the end, the last year of our life is generally the most expensive. So there's every reason to believe that if you have something like socialized healthcare, they will want to kill you as soon as possible because
let's not go socialized healthcare. Social Security.
Yeah.
Right. Even Social Security has a problem with people living too long.
Oh, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. It's the demographics are totally upside down on all that. But my point is, especially someone who's going to tell me that, being, too masculine is toxic. Meanwhile, he's sleeping with the nanny. Okay. Or someone who, basically defends the rights of women to abort their own children. And he possibly is impregnating people who do just that to get rid of a problem pregnancy. In a weird sense, as I thought about these two kind of issues side by side, I end up feeling for the woman who ends up having to put her baby in a dumpster, even though what she did kind of is superficially more disgusting because it's probably an older, bigger child and, it's crying in a dumpster and so dirty and da-da-da-da. Whereas, but the problem with abortion is that's done in these nice, clean environments. Oh, by the way.
We can separate ourselves from it philosophically, sort of.
Very quickly, you said something that triggered me. I did an interview with the guy that wrote this book. It's called Defenders of the Unborn on the previous podcast that doesn't exist anymore. Is named Daniel Williams, and it was about the pro-life movement before Roe v. Wade, but it was also about abortion before pro. I mean, people don't understand. There were hundreds of thousands of abortions even before Roe v. Wade.
Yeah.
Sure.
It wasn't just but they were not done with coat hangers and alleys. They were done with OBGYNs in sterile environments. There's hardly any difference at all. It's probably done after hours, before hours, without anybody knowing, without a nurse around to watch it. They only take 5 minutes. So that is probably the future of abortion if it were outlawed, Anyway, I just wanted to bring up that, and just as a placeholder, we're not going to talk about the story, but there was another story that came out this week. Headline is, this is from Live Action, which is Lila Rose's group. They do a lot of pro-life work. Arizona judge strikes, quote, unborn human being from abortion ballot language. A ballot initiative to expand abortion in Arizona will not use the phrase unborn human being after a judge rejected the language put forth by Republican lawmakers, deeming it too partisan and emotional. And so this is the problem. If we can't, it's very Orwellian in the sense that, we're just going to change the name of this
Language,
thing.
yeah.
And so then it won't be what it is. And then it becomes okay. So if we can dehumanize, and this is my entire reason that I'm pro-life, because the pro-choice, the pro-abortion movement dehumanizes human beings. That's why I will often use slavery as the analogy here.
Yeah.
Because
they might be humans, but they're not people.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, same thing. So it's like
personhoods, which is human
Yes.
beings, right? If you take out the being language, that goes to your point about personhood, right? So
Yeah.
is it a
I would be
distinction
fine with
without a
keeping
difference?
this, but yeah.
Yeah.
Be fine with what?
I'd be fine with keeping unborn human being.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's a
They don't have a problem with unborn.
Yeah.
They don't have a problem with human. It's the being part, right? That
Because
indicates
it sounds like it's actually alive and you're actually hurting
indicates
something.
personhood,
Yes.
which is what this all circles back to. Is this thing a human person that's worth protecting?
Yeah.
But beyond,
Yeah.
all the technical language that we just got into, which is important and part of the discussion, there is such a corrosive effect to having a culture that values life so little. And I don't know that we can put our finger on it. I don't know that we can draw, connect dots. But I am absolutely convinced that we have become a far more cynical, a far more morbid, a far more dark culture because
Culture of
we
death.
just simply allow it. Even if we don't participate in it. And I don't think it's a good thing.
Can I drop a white pill?
Yeah.
I think technology, probably not in the next 10 years, probably not in the next 20, but I think in 100 years, technology might solve this problem. You mentioned viability as kind of a, complicating factor.
That has been
It's
reducing.
going to be.
It's been reducing more and more and more. And when we can just take
There's a
the,
dark side of that, though. I hate to be a black pill.
I know, but we will make abortion unthinkable if we all agree that this is a human person and we can gestate it outside of a womb.
Yeah. But then we'll have designer babies on steroids, And I think the separation of
Not exactly opposed to that.
I would object to it. I think because again, part of participating in a Christian world is participating in this, recognizing the sinful world, recognizing limitations, recognizing children as God's gift, however they may come. I don't know.
Sure.
So
Well, also male birth control too. Once we figure that out, right, this problem goes way, way down. I think a lot of these
Get
are
on that.
is
technology
that going to be on the
issues.
list?
What's that?
Birth control and UVF.
Oh, IVF is
IVF.
on the list of. You looked at me. Is that on the list? I'm like, I have not made male birth control
If there's
yet.
a
in my
burning
lab.
IVF clinic, and there's a
Okay.
toddler.
Inside story on a text
Yes.
thread where Sarah's asking for things we should vote on for our next live
Topics
event.
for future events.
And someone said we should talk about IVF and birth control.
Yes.
And I was asking if that was made the list.
I think it's going to make the cut.
Okay.
Yeah.
Neat.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
So
and just to throw in one other thing,
Yeah.
you talked about how you kind of sympathize with the girl, but not with him. I feel the same way, and I think part of it. This is a big bias. I need to work on it. But I'm from a working class family. My dad was a pipe fitter. We struggled, right? And I have a bias kind of for the poor, and I see it in the Bible too, right? Jesus
Yeah.
says, "What do you do for the least of these?" And when the rich, there's this kind of flagrancy,
Cavalier.
yeah, it's cavalier. Whereas, for her, I'm sure it was I don't want to do this, but I don't have any option.
Yeah.
Whereas, I think there is this kind of flippancy that a lot of wealthy people have always had.
they can spin their way out of any problem.
Yeah.
You're probably right about that.
Well, and I will say there are.
You mentioned bail. And how she's
yeah.
she's not going to be able to make bail, whereas
Right.
we don't have equality
she
under
was
the
a
law.
slave. She was a slave. She made $500 a month. A month working in a food truck.
We don't have equality under the law. We never have. Rich people can pay bail in a heartbeat, whereas this traps people like this woman who would do the same crime.
Yeah.
Let's say it was
Yeah.
a rich woman that just didn't want a baby,
Yeah.
and she threw it in a dumpster.
I will say though that you hear stories and they're anecdotal. I don't know if they're true, but that a lot of immigrants, do get EBT cards. They do have access to a lot of money and resources
The receipt.
and things like that. But I would say, and obviously she didn't have that, but I would say that there are pregnancy centers. In fact, there are 3 pregnancy centers for every abortion clinic in America. So when people say you people only care about the baby, you don't care about after the baby. Well, all those pregnancy centers provide cribs and formula and diapers and clothing and all sorts of wonderful things.
And the church is the number one adopter and foster
Yes.
system in the world. It's not even close. The evangelicals and the Catholics blow everyone else out of the water.
Yeah. I mean, I'm on the board of a pregnancy center up in the, not quite the Woodlands, but North Houston. And so if she had gone in, they wouldn't have asked her about anything.
When I worked for Catholic
would have cost her
Charities,
nothing.
I did the books for St. Jerome's and St. Michael's children's homes and a couple of foster programs there. And the Christians are dying to take these children in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. It doesn't have to be a dumpster and it doesn't have to be abortion. Yeah.
Okay, very quick story, and this just happened to be. I mean, y'all next time y'all need to submit more
We all
articles.
did slack. We slacked this time
Okay,
for sure.
but this is just kind of funny, which is that people are pointing out that Kamala Harris has a website, but she doesn't list any policy positions or any platform.
That is so brat.
I mean, it is brat. And what concerns me though is that our electorate basically is so.
Use your words carefully.
They don't really
sort of
they don't
dumbed
really
down.
they don't really care about issues.
The golden microphone would call them low information voters.
Low information voters, yes, the EIB network. But it's basically like, well, she's pretty. She's a lot better than the other guy who seemed to be almost dead. And the base seems more excited about having her now, and we're just not going to say anything. She's just going to be a tabula rasa, and if people want her to be, they think she'll be pro-choice. They think she'll be pro whatever. I mean, she's literally now campaigning against her own administration. She's saying, I know the economy's not good for you people. Inflation's too high. We're going to bring down prices. She has been in power for 4 years. So she's literally, she's able to do that. Because
but not prices of EVs.
So just a few things out there. One, the vice president is the least powerful position.
Yes.
Understood.
For example,
Understood.
Teddy Roosevelt was the police commissioner of New York, I think, and they wanted to get rid of him, right? But the voters voted him. So the only way to get rid of him is to make him the vice president, and he has zero
funny.
power.
Yeah.
That's
Then,
hilarious.
of course, the
she
president
did
died.
cast the deciding vote on the
Right.
Sometimes you get a 50-50 split.
That $1.9 trillion in anti-inflation.
reduction.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, she's been around for a while. She ran for office before. I'm sure she had it on
was
her
really
website.
successful.
And it was great. But I mean, she got her the vice president, right? She was a senator, so we can look at her record and see where she stands on the issues. And also,
You
it's
can.
been,
You're a high information voter.
right. But also, it's been 2 weeks.
Is she
right?
going to ban fracking?
Is she going to ban fracking?
That's not.
She
I
said-
don't know where
she
she
said
stands on the
yes, now she
issue.
says
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Hopefully not. But I think she'll have it up. I don't think on election day we're still going to be like, is she going to post, something? Because it's been 2 weeks. Normally, people haven't really even started campaigning in Iowa 2 weeks into their presidential campaign. So
This is a strange circumstance to be sure, but also she knew this was coming. I mean, it's not like she was
Biden, like Jill and Hunter, like Biden was saying, Hunter wants me to keep going, right?
I know
the
what they were
Bidens
saying.
were not letting go. It wasn't obvious that Kamala would
all I'm saying is she's been the vice president for a while. She knows where she stands on things. She was sort of like salivating in the back room, sort of like, when is the shiv going in? And when it did, it should not take her any time to be like, well, here's where I stand on things. She's not putting it up there on purpose because she knows that what she's doing right now is working.
She wants to be a blank slate.
She wants to be the bringer of joy. She wants to dance and sing and laugh and be a breath of fresh air, which, listen, if I were running
freedom.
against Trump, that's what I would do too. Because he could be seen as like a bulldog and a blowhard. And so I'd be like, guys, forget that old guy. He's let's just have some fun. Let's get back to what matters, but not actually say what matters. I think it's strategic.
It definitely is, but it's highly, highly, deeply cynical.
So this is one of my
Does that
problems
matter?
with democracy is you get somebody that changes their opinion while they're in office based off of what they're, Obama and gay marriage, right?
Yeah.
That changes their opinion on something because of public support, right? Is that democratic? Right? It's a complicated question because they didn't elect him when he was, take Obama and gay marriage, like they didn't elect him when he was pro-gay marriage. They elected him when he wasn't.
We
right?
call them representatives.
So that's the
meaning
point.
They represent us.
But when we change and they change their mind based on that, super cynical. But that's still representation.
But that's not the issue here. The issue isn't that she's flip-flopped. The issue is that she's not actually saying anything.
Right.
She's not answering any questions. She's not doing any press conferences. She's not
She
putting
did one
anything on her
yesterday.
website. Huh?
She did one yesterday.
She did one question?
No,
and what was that
It was two
question?
or three.
Yeah.
And
But
what-
one of them was, when are you going to talk to the press?
Yes, and she said by the end of the month something.
Yeah.
Yeah, like one
Lord
time in
help
August.
us. You know how long the month is? Like, my thing is not what her policies actually are. It's that she's not putting them out there because I think, Evan, you're right. I mean, I don't always agree with you, but for this time, for sure I do, that she thinks that people will like her as a personality, and then whatever she believes in, they'll vote for unwittingly.
Right.
I think she has her finger up in the wind trying to see which way it's going, and then she's going to tailor her platform.
The fact
don't
that she
know.
picked Tim Walz to me means she does not have her finger to the wind. She has her finger right up the booties
Well,
of certain people.
the alternative was Shapiro, and that's a big issue with the Israel-Palestine thing going on the left right
he's
now.
Jewish.
I know.
And he didn't fight, but
he was part of the IDF. Yeah, he volunteered, which is
Yeah, as an American.
I think there's a difference. I think there's a difference between whether you support Jewish or not and whether you support Israel's policies, right? Because I could be totally pro-Jew, even pro-Israel, but say, I mean, I love this country, but I'm not going to pretend I support every thing that we're doing, right? But I think this is just an issue for the moment. I think within a month or so, y'all can have me on here in a month and make me eat my words. But I think within a month or so, it'll be up there.
When you say a month or so, the whole span of her campaign,
Right, it's 3 or 4 months.
People will be voting in a month in some states.
When does early voting begin? What's the earliest?
Some states, I mean, I think we're like 40 days out.
Yeah. But going back to what y'all were saying, I don't know that it's going to be as big of an issue when she does put it up, with the exception of the Gaza people, because I think going back to low information voters, I don't think that people are going to go to her webpage, look at the issues, and be like, oh, I was going to support her, but we disagree on it.
That's my point. My point is that this is just proof to me that voting is too easy and too widely available, because there should be enough limits on who votes that they should at least go into a voting booth saying, well, I'm voting positively for this person because they believe this. Now, I understand I'm putting litmus tests that
the person making those limits could be a Democrat.
Yeah.
And then they say, well, if you have a history of mental illness and you own a gun, you probably can't vote. And then you'd be like, well, a Vietnam veteran.
I understand. Yeah. I'm just lamenting that it's like, basically we're just going to run out the clock. We're not going to say what we believe. We're not going to put ourselves to be in a position to be, I was actually thinking about this for our October event, where we're talking about like, who should we vote for? And it's like, because I think I'm one of the speakers, right? Mm-hmm. I think I'm just going to be like, well, Trump said these are the 20 platforms. These are it. This is Agenda 47, narrowed down to 20 things, and very readable Helvetica typeface. She says nothing. So, I mean, she's literally she's saying, I'm not him, or we're not going back.
And I think that's it. Yeah. I don't think this is about Biden or Harris. Yeah. I think it's about Trump.
Well, that is what I was going to say. When you said people aren't going to go and be like, oh, those are policies. What people are going to do is say, here are Trump's policies. I don't like them.
Exactly.
But there's now nothing for the sort of right side, you know what I mean, politically right, to come back and say like, well, we don't like this, or to showcase it like, hey, listen, viewers and potential voters, these are the things that you should pay attention to. There's nothing for them to say, but there's plenty to attack on the other side because he's a known quantity.
Well, and I would say this is a problem for the left. Like, so you say, for example, no fracking. Well, the environmental base loves that. That's why the very first thing Joe Biden did was like basically end a lot of drilling and decrease our oil production and all that.
Blue dog Democrats.
Yeah, but the average independent in Pennsylvania is going, whoa. That's, we have a big, environmental lifeline there, or economic lifeline there. So she doesn't want to say it. She wants the left to believe that she's with them, and she wants the moderates to believe.
All people.
Yeah. And to me, Trump that is fundamentally dishonest. It is
for sure.
That's my point. That's my point.
What did you say?
Trump does that too.
Trump is everything to all people. He absolutely is.
He's on all sides of everything.
I mean, but his Agenda 47 and his platform now is actually quite detailed.
And if he turned on 50% of those policies tomorrow, the entire base would pivot with him.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think he's been pretty consistent in what his policies are.
And I would think, the campaign wrote, whatever's on his website, the campaign wrote it. And he goes out and...
No.
I don't know.
He was heavily involved in that. He actually, to his detriment, because he is who got abortion off of being one of the top 20 platforms. He was very involved, incling putting some words in all caps or capitalizing some words.
If there's all caps, he helps.
It looks like his Twitter back when he had Twitter.
I think with Trump, really, and y'all can disagree, but I think he goes out in front of crowds and he tries to make the crowd cheer. And if something's not working, he says something different until the crowd cheers.
But at least he goes out in front of crowds. I mean, he even hates teleprompters. I mean, he actually can give a 2-hour talk. Yeah. I mean,
sometimes we're way too long.
He gave an hour-long plus news conference the other day with no notes, just totally. I mean, I think you should get credit for that. He does live stream that was watched by over 100 million people with some guy I never even heard of. He's going to have an interview with Elon Musk on Monday. She's doing nothing.
But if
She's
you're-
just a total blank slate with a great smile. And people are like,
It might be a good strategy. Yeah.
It probably is a good strategy.
And
That's
it-
why I'm worried.
yes. And this is why it's so maddening. Because to me, an election should be about a binary choice. You know, we believe in these things, we believe in those things, and you get to vote your values. And the fact that, I mean, yeah, okay, I generally know where she stands, but that's because I pay attention like a crazy person to all of these things. But to the average swing voter out there, the 10% of people who somehow haven't made up their mind yet that are going to make the decisions in Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and Arizona and Georgia and Nevada, I guess, whatever, you know, like, they just get to fill in the blank. And to me, that is cynical. It is extremely, it's just dark. To me, it's dishonest. It's just fundamentally dishonest. So, but maybe people don't care. Okay, last article. I know we're kind of pressed for time. This was kind of fun. And I'm going to say this right now to parents, including my own wife, who might be listening in the car with our kids. I don't want them hearing this article. So if your kids are probably,
oh my God,
no,
you're
I'm
such a
serious.
dork.
This is a very rated R episode.
No,
Yeah.
We were
talking
looking
about
at different
this.
ones.
No.
Okay.
No, it's fine. I thought you were just trying to get your kids
Okay,
to not
well,
ask you for another dog.
before that, I did talk about an article where Dolce & Gabbana is putting luxury dog perfume at $108 out, and I thought that was ridiculous.
Yeah.
But maybe we'll come back to that.
So real quick, we were talking about what is a person. I argue that my dog is a person.
Okay, calm down,
no.
Cody.
Well, we did have that episode where who was it? Adam Harger said.
Adam Harger twice
Yeah.
said that dogs are not going to heaven,
Yeah.
and then he got labeled puppy killer.
Yeah. So be careful. Okay, but anyway, for now, it's for real. We're going to talk about a story that I don't know.
Okay, yes.
I would say,
Yes,
like,
kids
if your
should not
kids
listen
are
to
like
this.
16 or under, they probably shouldn't be listening to this. We won't say any naughty words, but it's a topic that's kind of humorous, but
Dicey.
kind of dark. So anyway, you've been warned. The article's from the Washington Post. A priest sues Grindr after he was outed. His lawsuit says Monsignor Jeffrey Burrell said in a lawsuit that Grindr released his data, leading him to lose his job and suffer significant damage to his reputation.
But real quick, not everybody knows Grindr is a dating app for gay men.
Yeah. And so
Really popular in the RNC.
Stop.
is it?
Yeah, no. Grindr released their stats during the RNC, and it's like, there's a lot more than we expected.
Well,
I did not know that.
there was since we've given the warning, there was just a guy today. I think it was a Midwestern state, maybe Nebraska, and he had gone to Prague, in the Czech Republic, and had sex with underage boys for years.
Jeez.
And he's now retired. He was a Republican lawmaker. You know, as I was reading it through, I was like, you know, let's be honest. I was like, don't be a Republican. Don't be a Republican. Dang it, he's a Republican. You know, y'all do the same thing. Anyway,
They do, but man, there's a lot of Republicans. It
Yeah.
is a bipartisan issue, like the kid stuff.
it happens across the board. Yeah. Anyway, but what's kind of humorous about this is the fact that this guy has not been totally shamed into just keeping his mouth shut and going away. Right. So he's basically saying it's your fault because there's like a conservative Catholic group that probably had their suspicions. And this guy was like high up. He was the top administrator of the United Conference of Catholic Bishops. So they basically said, we know that there's a problem of gay clergy. We don't want there to be gay clergy in the Catholic Church. So they came up with a plan to out this guy. And they did. And they somehow figured out a way to get data from Grindr legally. And it's basically because apps sell your data. Your vehicle tracks your movement and sells that data. Your 7-Eleven app that lets you get a free slushie every 10 slushies, that tracks your data. They make way more money on your data than the slushie costs them. And so and I guess Grindr does the same thing. I don't know how the back end.
Oh, no.
Sorry. The back end of that app works. Sorry. Anyway, we gave the warning to the parents. So at this point.
I am a middle school boy. I think you guys know this by now. I'm sorry.
Okay. Anyway, I don't know how the tech side of any of this works, but the fact that this guy didn't just like go crawl under a rock is crazy to me. And he's now wants to become a
repent?
millionaire. Yes. Or say, yeah, you caught me. I'm doing bad things for a Catholic priest. I should not be doing this. I should not have a Grindr profile.
Not to mention, he shouldn't have any kind of profile where
Right.
he's having sex. Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Or in a
Because he's
relationship.
married to the Lord. Last time I checked.
To Jesus.
Yeah. Okay, Kim. Tell me
I
more.
just have yes, this is hilarious, and I have no sympathy for hypocrites like this, except for I have a little bit of sympathy for pastors that have to hide either being like an atheist or being gay
Whoa. Hold on. You have sympathy for pastors that have to, quote, hide being an atheist?
Yeah, seriously.
Don't be a pastor. That's a terrible profession for an atheist.
They weren't an atheist when they became a pastor. And that's the problem. This is the only...
Say that again?
They weren't an atheist when they became a pastor.
Hey, if you become an atheist while you're a pastor, you should look for a new job.
And I think so too. But this is the only set of skills they have.
Yeah.
Right? They went to Bible school. They went
could
to
sell insurance. That's what most former pastors
well, they
do.
could, but like, you know, when you're comparing this person with a person with a, I don't know, economics degree. I'm sorry, your MDiv isn't really good here.
They could probably
fight
Wow,
the
I
Olympics.
could not disagree with you more.
Listening to so I would definitely recommend listening to some of the stories from pastors that have, you know, come out as atheists later and just said like those 2 years where I had to hide it from my family, who like I baptized my daughter, right? Where I had to hide it from my, like I was a deacon or I was a pastor, I was like heavily involved with my church. And I don't know, I read Darwin and didn't believe in evolution didn't believe in God because I was told that like the only way to believe some of the Bible is to believe all the Bible, right? And they grew up in one of those churches and now they don't believe anything. It's heartbreaking to hear what they have to hide. Now, this guy's a hypocrite and like you can have a laugh at him, grinder, gay stuff. Like we're 12-year-old boys. It's fine. But I do have a little bit of sympathy for pastors and priests that go through a crisis of faith, the same way you have a sympathy for the Hispanic girl that feels like there's no other way out.
You know what?
Yeah.
I actually will take back what I said that I disagree with everything you said. I agree that if you are a priest and you have leanings toward you feel, you know, drawn to men. There is a sadness there. Yeah. There's a difference between being attracted to something and going out and doing it, and then getting mad that you got caught doing the thing you vowed not to do.
It's okay to laugh at this guy. Yeah.
I mean, good grief. Like, yeah.
Yeah, he reminds me of other stories. I'm not really sympathetic for him specifically, but
well, the reason that they went after him is because there is a concern that, and I have heard estimates that half of Catholic clergy are gay.
Well, because people that are struggling with that may choose that profession in a sort of to protect themselves from doing something they think is immoral.
Yeah.
Is it a honeypot though? You know, like, does it attract the creeps, or is it something that like develops creep? Is it an incubation?
Well, I'm
like,
not saying he's a
petri
creepy,
dish,
but
or well, I mean, yeah. He may.
I mean, okay, the pedophile.
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to.
Is and people say, well, don't conflate a gay adult person who wants to have relations with a gay adult person. Okay, fine, but and by the way, the public schools have more pedophiles than the Catholic Church.
That's absolutely true
by far.
I would need to see the data on that.
I'll send you links.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
next week on
it's
White Boy
bad.
Radio.
It's bad. But
not as many man boy in nature, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, I mean, so I think that there is a concern that the seminaries are full of young gay men and that people are perhaps habituated into the practice, or there's a whole recruiting process going on, or yes.
Is it a petri dish?
They can live out the lifestyle with no accountability because they don't have a pressure to be married. In fact, they have a very good excuse not to be married.
They don't live out the lifestyle. They live out the preference.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
and
anyway.
that was my distinction between feeling sorry. I mean, feeling sorry for someone because they struggle with something that they don't really want to do, but they have these leanings and these, you know, longings. That's so different.
Yeah.
From, you know, I mean, I'm single. I have certain things I would love to be doing too, but I'm not going out and doing those things necessarily. And if I got caught doing them, be like, I mean, what else is there to do but be like, I got busted. I shouldn't have been doing that.
Even without like the giant ones, like, you know, gay or atheist, like I super sympathize with people that disagree with their college's statement of faith, or their, you know, if they're in seminary and they have to sign a statement of faith that they don't really agree with, or a pastor that like
Theology by the Pint statement of faith.
or theology by the Pint
Ours is
statement of faith.
very easy to sign onto, right, Ken and Evan?
Yeah. I sympathize with those people though. Right?
Yeah, I also sympathize because I think we kind of pick and choose, right? Like pastor makes lots and lots of money, and you know he's like
You know how it
taking
is,
all this kind of stuff. We may even celebrate that, right? So there's things in the Bible that we, you know, it's kind of a cafeteria, right? Yeah. We're going to really enforce these things. These things, it's in there, but we're not going to. And you know, like someone who happens to be gay, you know, is getting the brunt of that. You know, one who's greedy.
The hierarchy of sin, sort of.
Right. Yeah.
But like there have been several Roman Catholic priests in the last 5 to 10 years who have come out as gay, and of course they
Still celibate.
Still celibate.
Yeah.
But the movement seems to be in this direction where, I mean, again, this happened in my denomination where it's like, well, this is the type A and type B. What is it? Side B, side A?
Side A, side B, yeah.
So it's like the orientation is fine. Hey, desire is fine. And then it gets to the point where it's like action is fine. Well, that makes sense because if orientation is fine and desire is fine, then action is just the natural consequence. Who are we to tell people not to live out their true self? And so I think there's if it is true that 50% of Catholic clergy are gay, I think this could be a real issue that kind of manifests itself in maybe unpredictable ways in the future, where you could have maybe mass resignation, or you could have some kind of split where they allow for gay clergy and they don't have to be celibate anymore. I don't know. But I will say being a pastor can be, it's a high burnout job. It's a high, your pastor's probably kind of lonely, probably a little bit anxious, probably feels like a failure a lot of the time, especially because he's probably in a small church, probably in a church that's shrinking.
This has become a counseling session.
Yeah.
now.
So, no,
We're
I
here
mean,
for you.
I'm good. I'm
Everyone
happy.
give
I
Evan a
love
hug
life.
at the next event on Tuesday.
I'm just saying though that like,
Yes.
but this could have been an opportunity. Like you
Yes.
said, he could have said, you know what, I'm going to fight this and I'm going to give my life to the Lord again. And you know what, I'm going to call on all the other gay clergy, who are doing the same thing on Grindr, but haven't got caught to do the same thing. Let's get back to, being the church, being the real thing, but he's fighting it.
Yeah.
So it's almost like he's saying, actually, I really didn't do anything wrong. Or if I did, it's justifiable in some way because it should have been private. So
Also, we need laws to make it to where if you sign up with a company, they got to keep your information private across the board.
that would probably be good as well. Yeah. I saw something today about a woman who bought a new Toyota, and she talked about like all the things she had to do to not have it collect and sell data.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
What were you gonna say, Ken?
I signed up for the opposite with my insurance. I
I
signed
did
up
that too.
for it to track my
Allstate
data.
tracks me, so I get a discount.
Voluntary interactions
Yeah.
is all that we really care about, right?
Right,
Did
right.
you consent to this? And with this gay thing, yeah, the consent really matters, right? Because what he did, I don't think like the sins like stack on each other. He violated his code of celibacy, just like a straight priest would, who went on Ashley Madison would have violated their code of celibacy or something like that. The only thing that matters is consent, right? And like this is the only thing that would stack on top of that is if it was like with a minor, which I think is the most problematic part of the Catholic sexual scandals, right?
For
This
sure.
is. I can laugh at this. I think this is funny.
And by
I
the
don't
way,
think
all
this is
this
a huge
talk of
deal.
like consent and should they share your, you realize, guys, this is an app where everyone else that's on the app sees your face and can hang out with you in person.
Yes.
Like even if Grindr didn't give the information, I've been on dating apps. You put your stuff out there, like your name, your face. You meet up with people. You have a drink. Like people.
Well, James O'Keefe would have been my hero if he would have signed up for Grindr at the RNC.
Oh,
He would have been my hero. He wouldn't ever do that, but
well, are you saying that essentially since he put his face out there, like he didn't have a right to privacy?
well, she said anyone that recognized him, like on the app,
his
it's your
neighbor
face.
is-
Oh, okay.
I'm like, how foolish was he to think that
Yeah.
that was protected? I would never go on Bumble and be like, how dare you tell someone I'm on the dating scene? Like, I just put my face in front
Gotcha.
of thousands
Yep.
of Houstonians,
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. We're out of time. Cody, where can people find you?
Oh, I'm on TikTok, Cody Pogue.
Oh,
Yeah.
You still working out the algorithm?
Still trying to figure it out. I figured it out for a while and then it just cratered. And now I'm doing the same thing and getting 200 views. And I'm like, what the heck?
well, you're 201. I'll look you up.
There you go.
Aw,
Cody Pogue.
Pogue.
P-O-G,
And
C-O-D-Y,
you can find him
P-O-G.
October 15th
Yes.
at our event, which we just found out today will be at Heights Church.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm not telling you jokers where I work.
Yeah. But his name is Ken,
I'm Ken
and he
the
is an
accountant.
accountant, and he is an anarchist, and he's at every Theology by the Pine event. So if you want to argue with him, do that.
And at the next event, he's going to be helping you make T-shirts. He
Oh,
will
very
not be in
cool.
his
Yeah.
normal post. It's a different post. Anyway,
And
exciting.
people can find out about Sarah, theologybythepint.org.
Yep. As well as Evan and Ken and anybody that's on our leadership team or board on our leadership page. Yep.
And I'm Evan. I'm at First Lutheran. Anyway, thanks for listening. It was fun and rowdy. We'll see you next time. Until then, we encourage you to question freely, think deeply, and disagree as needed.